Kelly Rowland, Beyonce breaks down, is the mother of Jay-Z's child. It all began with a picture, an ordinary photo of Titan, Kelly Rowland's son. Nothing out of the ordinary at first look. Then, however, people began contrasting Titan's traits with those of other people. Not someone you would anticipate, not Kelly's spouse, Tim Weatherspoon. No, they began muttering something crazy. He resembles Jay-Z, fans now conjecture constantly. This one, however, struck in a different way. The collective halt was palpable. Titan's jawline, eyes, and nose. Comparisons side by side started to proliferate online. Furthermore, the time was not favorable. In 2014, the year Jay-Z caught Solange's hands in that notorious elevator video, Titan was born. People had long been curious about the true nature of that clash. However, they were now making connections in a completely different way. And you can see why this hypothesis shocked folks if you are familiar with Beyonce and Kelly's past. They were more than just bandmates of Destiny's Child. They were best friends in their youth. Kelly was raised almost entirely in the Knowles home. Other than blood, they were sisters. Therefore, if this story were accurate, it would not simply betrayal. It would be nuclear. Then, the video was leaked. 4K resolution, leaving no space for creativity. A video purportedly depicting Jay-Z and Kelly being, well, too close. Of course, no formal confirmations. However, the internet took over once more. People were attempting to make sense of it by breaking it down frame by frame, analyzing the timeline, and consulting astrological charts. As if things could not get any uglier, someone brought up Kelly's old song, Dirty Laundry, which many used to dismiss as just another confessional from the business. It felt like a confession with a target now, though. The lyrics about feeling overshadowed, being in a poisonous relationship, and being envious of a close friend's success, it began to sound more like receipts than fiction. But Kelly was not the only one involved. The story of Ramirez Satterthwaite, a young guy from New Jersey who has been battling valiantly to persuade Jay-Z to take a paternity test, is the most persistent of the paternity allegations that have trailed Jay-Z for years. Wanda, Ramirez's mother, said that she and Jay had a romantic relationship in the 1990s when she was only 16 and he was 22. She consistently made the same assertion. They used protection, but nothing worked. Wanda eventually died, and her close friend was given custody of Ramir. However, the legal battle continued. Ramirez only desired the truth. He only wanted closure, not fame or fortune. Only a yes or no. Jay's team even made contact at one point. Mentorship, assistance from the music industry, and possibly even signing Ramirez to a label were discussed. Then, however, everything froze once more. Attorneys withdrew in silence. People began to wonder why Jay-Z was making such a big effort to evade a test. Would it not be simpler to prove it and go on if the response was no? Then it grew gloomier. A whole other set of issues would have arisen if Wanda had been a minor at the time of everything. That is what some people think Jay-Z has been avoiding. However, there has always been something elusive beneath that well-maintained appearance. This entire event is completely out of script since the individual is skilled at manipulating a story. He was able to avoid the news, get through the turmoil, and stay just beyond the line of controversy for years. However, the pieces no longer fit together. Not when several women are coming forward with experiences that are strikingly similar. Not when no one explains Solange's complete WWE moment in an elevator. Not when the same man keeps showing up in tales about his own circle's hidden girlfriends, secret children, and secret conflict. For a moment, let us go back to Destiny's Child. Beyonce was the star, as everyone knows, particularly Kelly's. Rumor had it that Matthew did not treat Kelly fairly. There are rumors that he favored Beyonce, promoting her voice, ideas, and image, even if someone else came up with the idea first. According to reports, Kelly was benched, dressed more subtly, and frequently took a backseat role. It was visible to you. Despite being in the spotlight, she managed to remain unseen, and perhaps, just possibly, that affected her in some way. In 2013, Kelly spills her dirty laundry. She feels like she is always in the background, swallowing jealousy while grinning in public. And suddenly she is telling the world that she is in a poisonous relationship. Fans quickly read between the lines, even if she does not provide identities. The tone and the timing all suggested a single individual. He was not just any old person either. Kelly once referred to the lady he was married to as a sister. Titan comes after that. People began connecting with Jay-Z, who was born the year of the elevator incident and the year he was supposedly discovered skulking around. Jay-Z's lengthy history of avoiding straight questions, Kelly's son, Beyonce's quiet, and Solange's rage. Neither did Beyonce's Lemonade album help to diffuse the situation. Raw, poetic, and calculated, she displayed her grief. "He only wants me when I am not there," together with the line, "He better call Becky with the good hair," set off a frenzy. Everyone was curious about Becky's identity, Rita Ora, Rachel Roy, or someone else. However, Kelly Rowland's inclusion on the list was unexpected. That seemed unimaginable, too intimate, too near to home. However, fans are bringing up old footage, interviews, and subtly tense moments. There are certain clips when the energy between Bey and Kelly is off. How they embrace, how they steer clear of specific looks. It seems frigid in retrospect. There is even conjecture that their friendship's public persona has been meticulously constructed, that the Grammy backstage pictures, Instagram shoutouts, and group reunions are all merely ways to preserve the brand. While the real connection slowly soured behind closed doors, smoke and mirrors were used to maintain the brand's cleanliness. J2, he simply floats above everything, silent. Not even the courtesy of clarification for Rymir or the others. No confirmations, no denials. He seems to have perfected the art of plausible deniability, never far enough to dispel suspicion. Someone with too many secrets and too much knowledge of him. What makes it even louder is Kelly Rowland's silence. She has never responded to the rumors directly, refuted them, provided an explanation, or even recoiled when admirers analyzed every word and every image. However, it is possible that the silence was survival rather than avoidance. Because let us face it, defying Jay-Z and Beyonce is more than just treading carefully. It is stepping into a hurricane. Consider it. Beyonce is an institution as much as a superstar, the Bee Queen. She devoted decades to creating a brand of power, devotion, and excellence. It is risky to be linked to someone who might unintentionally jeopardize that reputation. It is also possible that Kelly's tightrope was becoming thinner each year. Some claim that her career was purposefully halted and that someone called her behind the scenes whenever she became too popular, that her momentum was misdirected and her projects were quietly put on hold. Excuses, incorrect timing, incorrect sound, and a lack of label backing were constant. Fans now question, however, if there was someone intentionally ensuring she never overshadowed the crown. J2, although his past with women is well known, it is oddly shielded. After alleging that Solange gave her a look that almost made her run, Liv, the rapper who previously claimed that Jay tried to hit on her while she was out with Beyonce, went viral. That story may have been dismissed, but Liv went on to release the song Sorry Mrs. Carter, which had lyrics that were a bit too detailed. She was clear, she gave names. And once more, Jay-Z has not responded. Nothing but quiet. Particularly as the times begin to overlap, people grow weary of rumors being ignored. How many more stories are there if Ramiro has been struggling for more than 10 years to get a test done and Jay-Z was engaged with Wanda in the 1990s? How many children have wondered as they grow up whether the man they see in music videos is actually their father? What about Titan? What would happen if he began to ask the same questions as an adult? How long until he begins to probe if the likeness is more than a coincidence? Let us not act as though this generation lacks courage. Instead of keeping secrets, these kids record, upload, and go live with them. Not only is it messy, that is why Solange is angry. It explains Bey and Kelly's cold distancing from one another. It even gives Beyonce's songs a new depth, transforming their enigmatic lyrics into covert confessions. And perhaps it explains the extreme quiet. It was because too much happened, not because nothing happened. Perhaps Kelly believed that the only way to preserve what little serenity she still had was to remain silent. Perhaps Beyonce is more knowledgeable than she admits. Perhaps Jay-Z's quiet is a sign of fear rather than strength. Ultimately, it is about the weight of what has been kept silent for too long, not about confirming every story. The unrelenting strain, the looks that convey more information than any news release ever could. The facts that no one is willing to speak are sometimes the loudest, and in this instance, the quiet may be the loudest cry of all.